I asked ChatGPT a question to see how the system would solve it. And the question was, a factory produces nails and packs them in boxes of 200. If the probability that a nail is substandard is 0.006, find the probability that a box selected at random contains at most 2 nails which are substandard. So let's see how this calculation goes. As you can see, ChatGPT was, I guess, lazy enough not to calculate it fully. In my opinion, one thing that ChatGPT did not do was use the method, the Poisson approximation to binomial, which is the main issue about this question. It's what makes the question so important and beautiful, yet so simple. So I will be continuing on my own. Since we can see that ChatGPT leaves our question unresolved, when we take a look back at the question, we see 2 important facts given to us. One would be probability, and one would be the number of boxes that the nails are packed in, which would be the number of trials for us. So n would be equal to 200, and p, the probability, would be equal to 0.006. Now, the first thing that I see is a random selection in the question, so that would make me think that this question is a binomially distributed question. So I would define x distributed binomially by n and p, which would be, in our case, binomially distributed by 200 and 0.006. But there's also one thing that I see is that the number of trials is way larger than the probability of one of those trials happening. So there's a huge difference between that. So I think of this method called Poisson approximation to binomial. But we have to check if it is actually a question to be solved that way. So there are some things we have to check. The first one would be, like I said, that the number of trials would have a large difference with the probability. So that's a check. And that's another thing, is that the number of trials must also be larger than 20. And we can see that's 10 times larger. And the last thing we have to check is the expected value, which would be n times p for binomial, which would also equal to lambda, which would also have to be smaller or equal to 10, which we can see that it's way smaller than 10, exactly 1.2. So we know that lambda is 1.2. Since I know that, I will continue calculating what's expected from us, which is a random box that contains at most 2 nails. So we can say that the question is asking x less or equal to 2. And the easiest way to calculate this would be calculating p equals to, the probability of x being 0, x being 1, and x being 2, and taking the sum of all of those answers. And as a side note, I'd like to remind you that the Poisson distribution and the formula we use for it is e to the power minus lambda times lambda to the power k, or in this situation it would be x divided by x factorial. So knowing this, I would be calculating the probabilities I would need to get the total probability I want, and I did the basic calculations for you. It would be e to the power minus 1.2 times 1.2 above 0 divided by 0 factorial plus e to the power minus 1.2 times 1.2 times above 1 divided by 1 factorial, and of course e to the power 1.2 times 1.2 to the power 2 divided by 2 factorial. And since I didn't want to lose many time here, I calculated these on my own, and I can say that the answer is e to the power minus 1.2 times 2.92, and this would approximately be 0.8795 based on my calculations. Thank you.